Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about what's called the coefficient of variance, example 4.13. And the definition is just the standard deviation divided by the mean. So let's put that in here. CV is equal to the standard deviation divided by the mean. So what that's doing is it's kind of a measure of dispersion or a measure of risk. It's telling us, do we have something like this or do we have something like this? How do those two, the deviation, the amount of dispersion I have, compare to the average that I have? Now, if you think of dispersion, as you often do in the investment world, is measure of risk. It's used oftentimes, as you can see down here in the example. Let's say I have two stocks. Let's say I have an IBM stock and a mining stock. And let's say the stock price, or the mean, is 50. And the standard deviation, the volatility in that price, is 10. Well, my CV would be, as we said in the formula, my standard deviation divided by my mean, which is going to be 0.2. Oftentimes they put that in percents by multiplying by 100. So that's 20. And then there's another thing they sometimes do is they call it the return to risk, which is just the reciprocal of the CV. And the reason they do that is the higher the return to risk, the less risky the investment is, as opposed to the lower the return to risk, the more risky. So if you look down here, it's a company called Mining. They have a lower standard deviation than IBM, but they're more risky because when you sort of, with the coefficient of variance, kind of standardizes that, because I say it's got a standard deviation of 2, but it's got a mean or a stock price of 5. So its coefficient of variance is 0.4, or on a percentage basis is 40, and its return to risk is much lower. So this number or statistic is used often for investment purposes to say how volatile or how much risk or how much dispersion is in that individual stock. Let's take a look at another. So we've talked about measures. Example 4.14 is talking about measures of skewness. So remember in this chapter, this whole chapter is about describing data. We talked about describing the data's location with the mean and the median. We talked about measuring the data's level of dispersion or risk by talking about the range, the variance, the standard deviation. Now we're going to talk about the measure of skewness. Well, if you're like me, you go, what the heck is skewness? Well, skewness is two things. Skewed, first of all, there's skewness, which means, is my data skewed to the left or is it skewed to the right? If it's skewed to the left, it looks like this, and it's called positive skewness. If it's skewed to the right, it's negative skewness. Now, another measure of what my skewness looks like is a number called kurtosis. It sounds like a sickness, but anyways, as you can see, positive kurtosis is where I have a very high peak and very steep, here you see it in the red, versus negative kurtosis means I have a flatter peak and my data looks more like that. So that's all so now we have measures of location, measures of dispersion, and measures of skewness. Now, let's move on to the next example because you'll see how all of this fits together. So there is a tool. You're saying, how am I going to measure all of this stuff? There is a tool within Excel, and we've gone back to the purchase order data. So if I want to know, let's say, and this is normally what you're going to do, you're going to say, I'd like to know all the descriptive statistics in Excel. Give them all to me. All you have to do is go up here to data, data analysis, make sure you have that add in, and you say descriptive statistics, and you say, okay. It's going to say, descriptive statistics for what range? Well, let's do it for all these purchase order values. I say that. Now I put a label, I include the label, so I want to hit that. I could output it to a new worksheet or I could output it to a spot. Let's put it in a new worksheet for now and give me all the summary statistics. I hit OK. Notice all of a sudden I have this new sheet and it takes me right there. And here it gives me all the statistics. What the mean is, the standard error, the median, the mode, the standard deviation, the variance of the sample, the kurtosis, the skewness, the range, the min, the max, the sum of it all, and how many are in my sample size called the count. So normally what you'll do right off the bat with statistics, and here I just put them for, you could do the same thing for AP terms. This gives you all the descriptive statistics in one, with one click. You don't have to go through calculating every single one of them. You just say, Excel, give me all the standard descriptive statistics. The key thing is you need to know what they all mean, and hopefully if we've gone through this, you recognize all of these. All of them are either measures of location, or measures of dispersion, or measures of skewness. Any questions, let me know.